Now, you talk about how truly excellent leadership hinges on recognizing that people in your organization are people. Now, that seems obvious, but why have you found that you have to remind people of this important point?
Yeah, it's true. You know, we are very visually oriented, tangibly oriented animals. We like to see the goal before we pursue it. You know, they say you have to write down your goals in order to achieve them. We're very bad with things that are abstract. You know, if I tell you you'll get a bonus for achieving more, you're going to ask me, well, how much more? And I just say, more. You know, it's unnerving. We like things to be tangible. And the problem is in so many organizations, as we achieve scale, our people become abstract. In other words, they're no longer human beings. They're line items, or they're a resource to be managed, or they're just another number that we need to manage in the scheme of other numbers like fuel costs, right? Like we just call it labor, right? And it's just a line item. And the problem is if we disconnect ourselves from the people, we're capable of making decisions that are actually very damaging, not because we're bad people, it's just that we no longer see the people as people. This played out in an experiment in the 1960s by a Yale scientist by the name of Stanley Milgram. Milgram wanted to understand the relationship between authority and obedience and trying to understand how the Holocaust could happen. The sort of standard defense from the Nuremberg trials and from so many Nazis was just following orders. And Milgram set out to try and understand, are we that lemming? Are we that much like lemmings where we just follow orders to the point where we can commit genocide? And so he set up what was a somewhat unethical experiment, but remarkable, where he had someone who was a volunteer to play the role of a teacher sitting at a control panel with a bunch of switches on it. And he had a scientist pretending to be a volunteer playing the role of a student. And the real volunteer, the teacher, was told that the student would be asked a series of questions. If they got the answer wrong or refused to answer the question, that they should flick a switch and administer an electric shock. And after each question, you know, you move up the voltage, and each switch was clearly marked what the voltage was with labels above that says mild, medium, painful, very painful, extremely painful, you know, dangerous, and at the end it had red with XXX. And as it turned out, you know, when the person was sitting right next to the teacher, very few of these volunteers could go very far before they refused to partake in the experiment. You know, they would say, "I'm hurting the guy," and the scientist, the authority figure standing there in a white lab coat, would say, "It's imperative that you do this." Very few of them would go very far before they quit. When they put the person in another room where they could be seen but not heard, they could go further but not all the way. And when they put the student in another room where you could maybe only hear some banging on the wall and that was about it, when basically they could neither see nor hear the impacts of the decision they're making, 65% of the volunteers were able to go all the way and kill the guy. In other words, when we can no longer see people as people, when we can no longer see the impacts of our decisions on the lives of human beings, 65% of us are capable of murder. And this is why the experiment was unethical, because these good people came to volunteer for this experiment and went home with the knowledge that they could kill someone. And so if you think about how we run companies today, where it used to be if we wanted to know what our people thought about us, we went onto the factory floor and we asked them. Or we spent a lot of time walking amongst the halls and we knew what it felt like. Now we hire an outside consultancy to commission a study where they do a web survey and then we're given numbers whether people like us or not. It used to be a time where if we wanted to know what our customers thought about us, we went and asked them. Now we commission a study and somebody goes online and fills out a questionnaire and then reports back. In other words, people are no longer people. Even their opinions are no longer, you know, we don't know how people feel. We're assuming we're even asking them the right questions. The point is, when a company is managed on a screen, when the executives or leaders of a company manage the resources on a screen, including those people, according to Milgram's findings, 65% of them have the ability to do some pretty harmful things. It should be no surprise that layoffs exist as such a standard practice. It should be no surprise that food companies put chemicals, partially hydrogenated oils, high fructose corn syrups into their products to save the money because they're not even aware of what they're doing. There was a long article in the New York Times Magazine some time ago about some of these food companies. I believe Doritos is one of them, but you'd have to check me on that. But basically, these food scientists were admitting that it's not even food. It's just a collection of chemicals. Well, how does that even happen? That we would actually feed somebody chemicals that's not even considered food and engineer it so that people become addicted to it. Well, it's because we're looking at the number and we're not looking at the people. This is as expected, I hate to say it, based on Milgram's experiment.
Well, Simon, I'm adequately scared about the humans that are around me now. Thank you very much.
No, if they're around you, you're in good shape. No, you want them around you. It's the ones who are not around you that I would be afraid of.
As long as they don't have a button in front of them to flip the switch, right?